So, good evening. This is the live AMA for the Checkmate debut. And I am T.S. Huddle, your host, and I am live and in person, which is why I ducked off camera like this. So, waiting to hear from some of you in the chat room. And I said, basically, if you wanted to get in on the giveaway to ask questions offline or in Twitter or to email me, it might be nice if I brought up my website's email address. And give me just 1 second. Yes, this is my first time YouTube streaming. So I'm sitting here going, let me stutter here for a moment and continue going. Okay. Let's see what we got here, because good old Facebook has a few things. And all right, let's just go with some of the outboard channels right now and come back and check the chat. Schmoof Tech, how you doing, Schmoof? Those of you watching at home, Schmoof is a gentleman I used to work with, and he's become a big fan of the novels, which means, ladies and gentlemen, that Schmoof needs better taste in literature, you know. So Schmoof, you might want to check out Josh Hayes' Valor series, and then of course, feel free to spin up whatever Valor title you can come up with, because he loves that. So tonight's live stream is going to be this episode of the Mind of T.S. Hoddle is going to be Valor, live stream of Valor. All good here too, Mike. So let's see. I'm going to go on some of the outboard channels here and see what somebody has sent in. I will go with the tried and true Miss Jen Nixon, who is my first reader on pretty much everything I write science fiction. So her first question was, what character do you most relate to? And we were actually having a conversation. Hello, Scott McGlasson. How are you, sir? Yeah, then I happened. Well, I've had worse things happen in my life, Scott, so it's all good in the hood. Anyway, so Jen asked the musical question, what character do you most relate to in the there she is. Hi, Jen. What character do I most relate to in the series? Now, if we're going with are we going the entire compact series, or are we going with just the suicide arc? And Jen is now in the chat room. Jen, you want the arc or the entire series, going all the way back to No Marigolds? Let's see. In the suicide arc, I have to admit that JT started out as a little bit of author projection, and it's a weird one. In that big long-winded video I posted earlier, I kind of explained his origins. Was another character. Basically, what happened was, when I was a kid, I wanted to play Star Trek. Nobody wanted to let me be Kirk, Spock, or McCoy. Wouldn't even let me be Scotty. It's like, oh no, you get to be Chekhov. And I basically had to do a bad Russian accent and scream a lot. So I said, screw you, I'm going to do my own ship and crew. And from that, in the 90s, there are some stories I wrote with those characters, but because the serial numbers were still visible after I filed them off, it was hard to do. One of the characters was named TJ, and his name and backstory got recycled in Flight Blade. He's actually the captain of the Cygnus in Flight Blade, which is Mitsuko's ship when she's introduced. But when I started to write The Children of Amargosa, I said, okay, I want to take the same character backstory and do it again. Now, I do identify with JT, but JT and his predecessor TJ had more interesting lives. I mean, first of all, you know, they could pretty much pick up any woman they wanted. And of course, JT lands Lizzie, and after that, he kind of grows up real fast, becoming a widower and um, a child soldier. That's going to force you to grow up real fast. And then there's the bond between him and Tishla and so on. But yeah, it's just kind of, you get thrown into these weird situations. And so JT is kind of me first of all, coming from a vastly different background. I have a completely blue collar background. My mom was a housewife. My dad drove a truck. JT's dad is an admiral, and his mother runs the interstellar equivalent of the Dutch East India Company. So a little different there. So I would say in the suicide arc, I kind of identify with him because it's like he's just kind of found himself and he's learning how to manage his life. And that only took me about 40 years to figure out. So I think if you take the entire series as a whole, starting chronologically with No Marigolds in the Promised Land, I feel like I'm John Farnow because it was real easy to get into his skin. I think that's obviously that book. It took a lot of cues from The Martian, including about halfway through shifting to go, hey, here's what's going on back home. And I not only took that premise and stuck it 500 years in the future in interstellar space, where now you have no FTL means to talk to people and no way to communicate. He's really in over his head. And I think Andy Weir did that too. And Andy Weir is a little more technical savvy. I mean, if you read Project Hail Mary, he's really thought out, how do we actually talk to aliens? Well, I took the premise that, well, stellar chemistry makes us all primates, or makes the reptiles look like primates. And so we all have tongues and we use them to modulate sound. And that's why we all look so much alike. Just basically at some point I need to address that because that is just a hugely that is such a that's a plot point with huge potential, but for right now it's just me being lazy because it's like it's just easier if Tishla has gray hair, a flat nose, yellow eyes, and or gray skin, shimmering white hair like Daenerys Stormborn, and the teeth look a little bit different, and that's it. And of course the anatomy is completely different with the Gelt. So it was just kind of easy for me, and it also let me do things like like Boule, the engineer, is literally from the Planet of the Apes, because I thought, why can't there be a Planet of the Apes? So of course I have to say he's not a chimp, he just looks like one. So if this ever got made into a television series, I'd have to go, okay, no, guys, you can't make it look like Roddy McDowell from 1970. You have to actually make an alien that suggests a chip, like a short Bigfoot or something, or, Chewbacca's midget brother. Anyway, so things like that. We are way off track here. Let's see again. And if you're in the chat room, please feel free to throw out a question here. And I did get something in the comments before the show. Let's see. David Huskins. Hello, Dave. And you draw spoilers like seagulls. Oh, here we go. Dave Huskins asks a completely unrelated question. So I was going to watch the festivities at a local Akron brew pub while my daughter was at rugby practice. So the question is, why would a brew pub be closed on Tuesday? I don't know. That sounds like really piss poor, especially post-pandemic, really poor business business savvy. It's Tuesday. I would close on a Monday. you know and actually most brew pubs I've been to have been open pretty much on the pretty much 7 days a week. I've never seen a brew pub. Why would you close? And Akron is a brew pub town. Or maybe it's just because I live in Cincinnati and we're like a beer city. I mean, you can't, you want to see which neighborhood is getting gentrified next. Ladies and gentlemen, come to Cincinnati and look for the new brew pub. So, yeah, that's how that works. And Dave also asked two other interesting questions. One is there liability insurance if your books attract dingoes? I talked this over with Flo from Progressive, partly because somebody just hit my car. So I just brought it up in the conversation. And the first thing Progressive said was, no, that other person is high risk. You should threaten them, with a lawsuit and they'll just pay for everything. And they did. I get a new fender in about 3 weeks. But anyway, that's what you get for submitting your claim during a snowstorm. But no, there's no dingo insurance on my books. If I get wider distribution in Australia, we'll look into that. But no dingoes will eat your baby. However, I live in Cincinnati, so we do have to worry about coyotes. And as I always say, coyotes are the rats of the canine world. You might say it's chihuahuas. Chihuahuas just look like rats. Coyotes actually are rats. I mean, they, foxes are like dogs with a cat operating system in them. My wife had a wolf, a literal wolf, when she was a teenager as a dog. It was like the main farm dog when she grew up. Coyotes are just freaking rats. They run out in front of your cars. They'll try to eat your pets. They're just basically a nuisance, and they'll keep you up all night. Oh my God. Right before the quarantine started, it was like one of my last Uber runs when I was, right before the lockdown started. And one of my passengers is just sitting there yawning constantly, and of course, me being the friendly driver, I said, wow, you're a bit tired. Did you get, tie one on last night? That's the usual conversation I had on Saturday mornings. And she said, no. She says, I'm staying with a friend here and it was, the neighborhood was Hyde Park. And she goes, and the coyotes kept me up all night howling. And I went, oh my God. I used to live in Reading, and the apartment I had, it had wall units and central air. So a lot of times I would leave, when the weather was cool enough, it's the right temperature, I'd leave the windows open. And occasionally you would hear trains in the middle of the night. That's actually kind of relaxing. What's not relaxing? Big red freaking feral dogs that are untrainable howling at the top of their lungs at the full moon in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. when you got to be to work at 7. Yeah, I don't like coyotes. So, oh, let's see. Any more stream of consciousness I can do for you? And my friend Jen informs me that pizza places close on Mondays, but that's where she lives, and you can't get delivery on Friday unless you want to wait 2 hours. That's true. And a fox is a dog. Yeah, that's put that in a book. It's already a meme, Jen. There's like going a fox. Somebody put a cat operating system into a dog. It was actually a wolf, but we still have foxes around here. Actually, I just never get to see them. Okay, what else can I blather on about? I know I got a few other questions. Did I get anything in Twitter? Let's see if Twitter is. No, HL Moore, who gave me a nice review, said hello on Twitter. So hi. And she's from Australia, so I will probably have to send her a copy with dingo insurance attached. Anyway, boy, we really, really got off topic on that one, didn't we? Got another question. What is your favorite book genre to read? And lately it's been sci-fi. I did start with a David Drake novel, but it was so Latin based that I couldn't really get into it. It was just kind of hard for me to follow. Although another friend of mine said, "You were reading David Drake. Here, let me recommend this." So that's two friends who are kind of hinting that I need to read David Drake. So I'm going to try a different book. I do that with occasional authors. I get it. I read one and I go, okay, this is boring. And then again, it just didn't work for me. Right now I'm reading Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I'm doing that one on Audible. So the lady reading that one is just she's one of those people that just has a blast when she does the voices. I should pull that up and see who the narrator is. It's like, oh, this is amazing. I know this. The wonder of technology, ladies and gentlemen. They can get to you anywhere. And let's see. Arthur C. Clarke. Is there info on this book? Title details. There we go. And remove place summary. Mispronunciation of hegemony is annoying. Oh, that's one of the reviews. And I hate to tell you this, dude, but the reader is British. So, yeah, they pronounce everything differently. Why are they? Here we go. Her name is Sophie Aldred, and she is absolutely awesome at this. She it's kind of like a female. I don't want to say R.C. Bray, because R.C. Bray is kind of taking on this military tone. I mean, he's great on the Galaxy's Edge stuff and J.N. Chaney and Scott Moon's Reaper novels, and that was probably the worst R.C. Bray imitation you're ever going to hear. But he was phenomenal on The Martian. I loved listening to him do The Martian. He actually did probably one of the most passable Indian accents I ever heard a non-Indian speaker do. And Will Wheaton, when he redid the audio, because there was a rights issue and everything, mercifully skipped over that. He just read, read Venkat as Will Wheaton. And normally Will does some halfway decent voices. I would love to have him read one of my books. Probably Jump when it comes out. Oops, I'm kind of getting ahead on another question. I'm rereading Dune, and Dune is one of those novels that will school you on rules or polite suggestion. Frank Herbert is the fifth author I've read modern author that I've read that can get away with head hopping. Of course, he wrote Dune in 1965. So of course he can head hop, but it's just like he goes from paragraph to paragraph and you know exactly whose head you're in, and it's not omniscient. It's like, I'm doing close third, but I'm going to change points of view every other. And you know who it is because the language and the thought and everything changes. The other four authors were S.A. Cosby, George Pelecanos, Stephen King, and now I can't remember. I was in the Keystroke Medium podcast the other day, the main podcast, and they were talking about point of view, and I said there's only a handful of authors who can get away with that, and those are the four at the moment this evening that I can come up with. All right, so let's see what's going on in live chat. How do you keep all these worlds and storylines straight in your head? Do you have to reread your own stuff? And that is from our good friend Schmooftek. Yeah, it is a very complicated universe. And I'm putting together a wiki, and I kind of just skim the book and go, okay, I need to put that in there. I need to put that in there, and I need to put that in there. Yeah, that gets a little complicated. There are details from the Children of Amargosa that I don't remember. And I'm going to have to get things to line up. So I'm like praying to God that everything I gave Sarah Davis at CHBB, which is Fantasy, which publishes my stuff as an imprint, I have to pray that I didn't hand her Lizzie spelled Lizzie because it's LizzY. And I caught myself in one book. Fortunately, it's one I put out myself, so I can always go back and correct that anytime I want, and nobody will notice. Things like that. But the thing I goofed on in Children of Amargosa, well, I didn't goof on that in Children of Amargosa. I just forgot the detail. Was I said I gave JT's grandfather a different name. I forgot what it was. It was like something like Hieronymus or something like that. And I have to go back and I'd have to pull the wiki up and look at it again. But in later books, there's this whole backstory JT spins out. He does not like his grandfather at all. And before the suicide arc ends, he's going to find out that his mother doesn't like him much either. And his name is actually Claudius. And the thing is, the Desarius family, Desarius, the original Desarius, was a guy named Mark Dazar. And he changed his name to Marcus Desarius because he was a Roman Empire nerd. And so when he planted a flag on the world that's now called Etrusca, he and his business partner decided that, yeah, we're going to build our own colony and tell the United Nations to go screw off. Okay, so there's no Mars, there's no United Nations, there's none of these newer colonies, because we can make our own wormholes. We don't need hypergates. We can go anywhere we can make our own wormholes. We don't need the naturally occurring ones to get from place to place. And the way Desarius Interstellar is run is the oldest child is the heir. It's almost like royalty. And on his 50th birthday or her 50th birthday, becomes CEO. And JT has turned his back on that and run away. His last name's not even Desarius, it's Austin, and they named it for his father. And there's reasons behind that by the end of the arc, it's going to become pretty obvious. I called him I didn't call him Claudius in Children. I called him something else, and I said his grandmother was Etruscan. And then later on, I said his grandmother was from Bonaparte, was a Sioux Indian named Red Cloud, and the Royal Red Cloud family and the Red Cloud family on Earth and on another colony founded by 3 or 4 Indian tribes, American Indian tribes, don't like them very much. They're like going, why are you emulating people who came in and brought us smallpox and took our land? Those people are jerks, and so she's kind of from Bonaparte, and unlike Mitsuko, who is, has spent most of her life breaking things and hurting people in uniform, JT's grandmother is this kind of snoot. She'd be right at home in Dune. Good God, she'd be right at home in Dune, not a Bene Gesserit, but she would be this, she would be this snooty nobleman's wife and was like going, we can poison the emperor if we just put a little bit of arsenic in his spice. She's the type to do that. And the company just kind of said, okay, you got a kid, she's 10 years old, we're going to trade her to run the company. You go retire somewhere. And JT frequently refers to the fact that there is an encyclopedia article on just how stupid this guy is. So, so how do I keep them all straight? I do have to read. A lot of times it's in my, I do spend a lot of time thinking about what I want to write next, or I'll go back and I'll write scenes just to kind of keep things straight that you'll never read. I'm reading about something that happens between JT and Ellie Nardino right now. And if that were to ever get published, it would kind of push forward the whole JT Tischler arc. It would push forward Ellie's personal arc and things like that. But the wiki is what I'm doing right now, and I'm finding things, and I know I'm going to have to do re-releases where I kind of iron the kinks out. And occasionally, like somebody like Mr. McGlasson will, ping me and go, you really don't know your enlisted ranks, do you? No, I don't. I know the officer ranks. I don't. In most of all the services, I don't know the enlisted ranks. because my Navy recruiter sent me to Cleveland for induction while I had the flu. Guess what that did to my numbers? Sorry, bud, you're not getting in. And of course, there is Matt the Nudist. Hi, Matt the Nudist. Matt the Nudist is, why didn't you get Markiplier to come in on this? I think that would be hilarious. I'd actually split screen him just so we could see how he'd react. How did you come up with the characters? Well, I kind of explained JT already. He was based on an earlier character, and the earliest incarnation was kind of a Mary Sue, and I tried to strip him of that. It's like going, he's gonna fall down flat on his face, and he's gonna kind of be the jerk and some of the. I don't like, I did not want to write Michael Burnham from Discovery, which is great because then he doesn't weep so much. But anyway, but there's different ones. Davra, the name. Andraste is her last name, and that is a Celtic war goddess. I thought, she's going to be this 14-year-old girl who becomes a great warrior. Well, she doesn't really become a warrior. She's more like, the brains of the group. But Davra was, I kind of had this warrior motif when I came up with her, and Davra is a corruption of Deborah, who is from the Book of Judges in the Bible, and Deborah was a fierce warrior woman. She went out and kicked Philistine ass. And so I changed it. I found like various spellings of it and kind of corrupted it into Davra. And that's how she became Davra. But then I was like going, yeah, but I kind of like the idea that she's this young black girl who loves math or something like that. And it just kind of like went off on its own. And that was how I came up with her. Duffy was based on an earlier character. Came up with him in the same set of characters as JT. Nardina was supposed to be based on somebody from that group of characters, but she kind of did her own thing. What I did was I killed her father right in front of her. And that allowed her to become kind of somewhat savage. I went, as I was doing a wiki, I reread Children of Amargosa, and I went, oh my God, I forgot how savage I wrote her. I mean, she's about ready to go out and take an axe and start chopping people to pieces. Tishla was actually supposed to be a minor character. The man who eventually becomes her husband was supposed to be the main character all the way through. And I went, I'm going to kill him off, And she does take some cues from Dany on Game of Thrones, but she doesn't have the dragon fetish, and she doesn't quite go off the deep end like Dany, which is good because I'd need about 8 or 9 books to do that properly. Tishla's problem is she has this tendency that, oh my God, I actually whispered in my husband's ear to say, go do this, and this invasion happened, and he was killed trying to put it right, So she's the kind of the one that'll put her head on a chopping block sometimes when it doesn't need to be. And she gets yelled at a lot. Suicide is the core of this whole arc. She is the pilot. She's the pilot who will take any risk to achieve a certain result. She's a lot more calculated than she leads on. When I first thought of her, I didn't know if she was male or female. I didn't know what race she was. I didn't know what her backstory was or anything. I just, I think the character of Lucius Craig going, there's a pilot named Suicide, and I want that person to help me get, to run back and tell everybody what a great guy I am, and they should send the Navy and make me governor. Craig was an asshole, and that's why he got eaten in Storming Amargosa. God, that was a fun scene, right? So Suicide, and I just said, all right, let's make her something other than the usual. So I said, okay. So instead of Liam Neeson, let's make her Michelle Yeoh. Well, that was perfect. Let's see. So she had tragic past, but it kind of grows organically. Like she just kind of drops little details here and there. And by the end of Storming, you kind of know her backstory. She's married. She's been married twice. She lost both people, and she has become very stoic. And she is like the mother to the so-called children of Amargosa. It's 5 and eventually 6 by the end of Storming. She kind of takes them under their wing, and JT actually calls her mom. Even though there's a point in Checkmate where things kind of go a little sour. I don't want to spoil it too much. Let's see. Lucius Cray. I wanted Alan Rickman in my storyline causing trouble. And I didn't want Professor Snape going, they have hatred and I want them. No, I wanted a mashup of Hans Gruber and the Sheriff of Nottingham from the Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie. That's how I came up with Lucius Cray. It's just kind of, and I think somebody early on said, wow, he really can twirl a mustache. And I'm like, that's the only time I think I ever wrote a villain who intentionally did it. Most of my villains, you can't really quite figure them out. And in the crime stuff, there's just like, well, the guy sounds perfectly reasonable. It's like, why don't you make him the good guy? Because you're not supposed to do that. That's why he's not the good guy. What else do we have? Is anybody? Okay, raise your hand if I just put you to sleep. Because this is the first one I've done, and I'm still kind of feeling my way. And Jen has asked me, how many unpublished books do I have on my computer? Well, I have the entire Suicide arc, and that is 9 books, and 2 of those have been published. So there's 9 of those. And there's Scott says he's driving. Yeah. So let's see if I can put him to sleep. I just want to see, I just like, just try to open your eyes enough so that you only scrape against the guardrail, Scott. Okay. Just leave some paint on it. Okay. That's all you have to do. Let's see. So there's 9 of those. There is the follow-up to Holland Bay, which is the Dogs of Belmont Heights. And there is a PI novel I never published because I realized I hated writing PI novels. So I was like, okay, Nick Kepler was, when I was writing as Jim Winter, Nick Kepler was fun, and I really don't want to do that type of story anymore. I don't mind doing crime stories or mysteries, and I don't mind, there is an unpublished Nick Kepler novel on the hard drive as well. So let's see. So that's 2. We'll follow up to Holland Bay and the unpublished Nick Kepler, and then the other 7 suicide novels. So that's 9. And 7 of those, I did what's called a stupid author trick. I don't know if Rick Partlow is lurking or if he's going to see this at some point, but Rick, it is your fault. If you go to my publisher, they like having a lot of content. And of course, I kind of miscalculated what they meant by a lot of content, and they took a pass on it. But during the quarantine, I was door dashing. And so what I did was, on my way to the restaurant or sitting in the parking lot waiting for a run from DoorDash, I would dictate. And I would dictate into Google Docs. By the way, don't do that. That is migraine inducing. And then on the way to the customer, I would listen to an audiobook, which was fine, except that, it would go, Google Maps would interrupt the narrative, and you'd be hearing like Josh Hayes's one of his Valor novels, like going, okay, Sheridan went down the corridor and in 10 minutes turn left onto 5 Foster Morrow Road, or someplace out in the middle of nowhere. That got annoying. But dictation. I am a fan of dictation. I just don't have time to do it. I don't do it here. I don't do it here because my room, my office where I'm sitting right now, and the man cave, which is where my stepson spends most of his time, are right next to each other. And I'm pretty sure Matt does not want to listen to me, doing JT going off on a rant about, yelling at Boule, going, "Oh, yeah, no, Boule, FTL drives are all done with ball bearings. Don't you keep up with the latest manuals? It's all done with ball bearings these days." And I now owe Chevy Chase a royalty for stealing his bit. And then, when I'm gig driving, I'm back to Uber, or I will be as soon as, my car gets repaired. The person who hit it lives up the street from me, so thanks. Rant over. It's not really a lot of opportunity for that. It's I'm not one of those guys that goes out and takes a walk and talks into his phone. I can't do that, because the people I meet on the road are people I see around the neighborhood, and the last thing I need is to maybe go down to Silverton Cafe, or get a ping from my ex-wife going, "Yeah, Gloria was out for a walk last night, and you were talking about lichens and alien tongue sex, and what's up with that?" And I was like, okay. And it's like, okay, thanks. Now I look like an idiot. So, I can look like an idiot fine without doing that sort of stuff. Yeah, that was how I got 7 books. I had 9 books written in about 14 months. One needs a complete rewrite. I did throw out 6 of the stories focus on the different children of Amerigo. So this one is JT, the next one will be Mitsuko, and Jen just did we'll call it, I don't want to say it's a ripoff on James Bond, so we'll call it an homage. And she just did the alpha read on that for me. So that's Eric Iwano. And it's funny because he was a Marine in training when I came up with him, and now he's a spy. He goes from Gomer Pyle to James Bond, and by the end, by the time we get into the next half of the arc, he's going to be Jack Ryan. So yeah, that's how I do that. And right now, really, all I'm working on is the second follow-up to Holland Bay, and then I got to rewrite the final novel of the arc, which is Suicide Solution. And yeah, that one's going to take some time. I may dictate that one just because I can rattle it out faster. The other thing I found is it's a lot easier for me to write sci-fi than it is crime. I have to sit there and think the crime stuff out a little sooner. You would think with the real world, because my crime stuff tends to be a little bit leaner, and I don't have to explain as much, even though Holland Bay is set in a fictional city. And I was like, just make the street names believable and give it some history, and kind of take a detour every once in a while and say, yeah, Thomas Jefferson came here and he used this urinal in this tavern, and that's why it's a historical landmark. That it comes out leaner, but good God, the thought that has to go into it, and just kind of studying up on the particular criminal activity that's involved, police procedures, because this is kind of like a cross between The Wire and 87th Precinct, and then just kind of watching things in politics as well. I had to I keep having to strip plot lines out of it. The original Holland Bay, the first draft came out to about 105,000 words. So yeah, so Matt the Nudist says Suicide is his favorite character. Yeah, I think she's everybody's favorite character, and that was how I came up with this whole arc. So what do I do beyond that? I don't know, because I don't know if I stay in this universe or if I go to, Athon or Bane or something and say, I got something totally new and I promise only to write a trilogy, which will turn into an open-ended series. And, the fourth, fifth, and sixth novels will suck, but they'll sell well. So I'll tell you more about that when I go pick up my pet unicorn from that. So, all right. So what other questions do we have? Twitter has actually been kind of quiet. So let's see. Yeah, I'm going to hit refresh here because my computer does stupid stuff like that. Have I written an entire book only to scrap the entire thing? Well, I did say that I have to rewrite Suicide Solution, but it's basically the same. It's the same story. I just had to kind of string down the points of view. And I think what happened was I got into this. It was the same problem. It took me like about a year and a half to write Storming. Let's see. I'll get to yours in a second here, Scott. And that was, it had multiple points of view. There was I originally wrote it as a screenplay. Well, screenplays don't care about point of view. It's just show me the action. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll make this all dramatic. And the problem is that with screenplays, you show action away from your characters by doing montages. You show aliens bombing these areas. You show Gelt warriors defecting. You show alien or wolf people, doing an A-team type thing where they're taking, the enemy's technology and turning it against them. Things like that. Or the ever popular, let's have JT fly into a fusion blast and survive. So when I got the Suicide run, I was like, oh, I did multiple point of view on Storming. It shouldn't be too bad. And I looked at it, and I think it got to the point where I was making a big deal on Keystroke Medium that I was actually writing it in reverse. Because what happened was I knew how I wanted it to end. And that has to be multiple point of view, because Suicide goes away from the storyline for a while. When does she come back? It depends. Do I get if I get a chance to tell that story? I don't know. I don't leave it as a cliffhanger, but I do leave it as, oh, okay. And I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to tell you all the details of it. But now suffice it to say that my 6, now 7 children of Amargosa, and goodbye, Jen. My 6 or 7 children of Amargosa at that time are now essentially orphaned. I mean, some of them have their parents. JT is talking to his mother again. He's always talked to his father. But Suicide was the one he was closest to. And so there was little scenes of what they're doing later on. It tells you what's going on in the Compact universe. It tells you what they're up to. And it tells you kind of the impact that Suicide had on all of these people. And, they're older, they're wiser. And I've written 4 or 5 scenes that may or, one of which, I have to pick one and stick it in there. But, JT kind of shepherding a new generation, he's teaching Tishla's daughter how to fly a falcon. Well, I thought, it has to be multiple point of view all the way in, because the epilogue is all multiple point of view. Oh no, it doesn't. So I'm having to rewrite it from Suicide's point of view, and I'm kind of able to keep it. I may have to rewrite the outline a couple times, but I think I finally got it smoothed out. Hopefully the word count stays about the same. I think 90,000 for a finale is good. So there's that one. Now on the crime side, there's a character in Holland Bay, which is my latest Jim Winter novel, named Kagan, who is by the end of that book, he becomes the Holland Bay squad sergeant. And I originally wrote a book about him where he was an ex-cop and he got kicked out. He got booted from the force and had a falling out with his wife. And his wife was like, the dream ex. They actually still, after once they're split up, they actually get along really well. And that one, I even had a rather well-known writer beta read it for me. I mean, we're talking about well-known trad writer. She was trying to get me in with about 3 or 4 agents. And I think I disappointed her by going independent. But I read that one and I kind of looked at it and I said, this is just another PI novel. There's nothing special. He's not like Nick. Nick kind of had things that you liked about him that was organic. He was a blues musician. He was an ex-pothead. There's a call girl he's extremely close to, but it's not that, oh, he's dating the girl with the heart of gold. Well, he does end up dating her eventually. But that kind of grows organically from the overall storyline. And just the characters he's around, and the fact that the city of Cleveland was a character. So that was fine. Then I come up with this Jeff Kagan, so I thought, well, I can't sell Kepler because I sold it to a guy working out of his garage who wasn't the most financially responsible publisher out there. He's definitely not Stephen Rett from Athon. He just kind of, hey, our financials are good. Yeah, your financials are good. Where the hell are my ARCs? Where are my author copies? What do you mean? What do you mean you're shutting down? You could have told me this, and I could have stripped the serial numbers off and called for a new one. Wrote a new one. So that's on there. There is a Nick Kepler novel, and I got to figure out what to do with this because it came out at 40,000 words, and Down and Out, who publishes the Holland Bay books, is not going to want that. So there's that. And Scott McGlasson is asking me, tech you're proud of. You want to clarify that, Scott? What tech that I'm proud of? You mean tech that I'm proud to work on? Or tech in my storyline? Yeah, I kind of need to. I'm going to go with technology in the universe, and I think the neatest thing I came up with was the palm tat. And a lot of people think that I actually just conjured that up out of thin air. Actually, I didn't. Now, the wrist chip was kind of a hard sell because there's a lot of these people. Oh my God, it's the mark of the beast, and I had to grow up with that. Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought you meant, Scott. Okay. Your conceptions. Yeah. Okay. I grew up with that and it just got really, really old. So I had to sell that. And I think it'll be in the next book, Royal Orders, where Mitsuko is just kind of thinking to herself or talking to somebody. I think she's talking to somebody and says, yeah, there was one colony where they were, the population was largely Mormon and they were a little iffy about that. And then over time, it just turned out it's like going, well, we just forgot to build an internet, we're like, it's we talk by radio. We do things old school here, because it doesn't break as often. So there was that. That was the thing I had to make it work. You had to have a chip in there and it identifies who you are, but that's like where your credit cards are. That's where everything is. And, it's tied to you. It gets like, so everybody has this thing. You get it cut out. It's kind of hard to get a new one. You can get a new one, but it's a real pain in the ass, which one character in Royal Orders has to go through. But it's the reason I invented that was like, well, what drives the palm tat? And the palm tat is actually something NASA was looking at. And at first I thought it was kind of creepy. It's like, we're going to put a tattoo on there and it's going to send you text messages. And Neo-Luddites, exactly, Scott. It's amazing. It's like going, we don't drive these crappy cars, we don't do these silly maglevs, okay? We drive Teslas because that's the way we did it in the old days, and we liked it. We loved it. But I got the palm tat, and I think by the time I got to Broken Skies, which would be book 6, I think. Yeah, it's book 6. chronologically. The palm tats were able to like, oh well, it can do a hologram. It does audio, which probably feels really weird in your palm, but they're thinking nothing of it. That was kind of the coolest thing, was like going, oh, you can talk to your palm, but that's like using your cell phone, and then that's like using your cell phone to do that. There's certain things your cell phone can't do, and you have to have a computer. So they would have these shoulder mounted things. I know one beta reader called me out. They said, that's too much like what the police use. It's called a PCOM. And there's two versions of it. One is it's the shoulder mounted rig, and the military uses that because it's just easier than tying in your chip to the to the military network, especially when you want it secured. It's like, you don't call Verizon when you want to phone in a strike, and you don't want the enemy to know about it, because they can hack that. So you use military net, and the PCOMs are that. They're kind of old school, let's use radio, or it uses bizarre internet protocols. And the other one is the head mounted, and that's the one that Suicide and JT and Mitsuko always use when they're flying the GoldenEye, which is one of several ships in this arc that's JT's pride and joy. The first one wasn't even his, it was a government ship. And then the second one, they just kind of signed it over to him. So Matt the Nudist wants to know about classes of ships. Yeah. I actually don't have a clear picture of them, but I do have vague ideas. I try to give enough of an idea of a ship that the reader looks at and goes, oh, okay, that's what that is, and depending on your experiences and things that you've seen, you just kind of fill the details in. And there's the two biggies at the beginning of the arc. Well, in the Amargosa trilogy and the related novellas are the Woodrow Wilson class. And those are Earth built. So I tied everything Earth built to the United Nations. And Earth is rather like the United States, like Russia, like Britain, like China. To some extent, I think India is kind of getting like that too. They're kind of full of themselves, and they're all, so the UN is like, hey, in our glory days when we were basically beating the crap out of each other, we had aircraft carriers. Let's make our starships look like aircraft carriers. And so you have these like aircraft carriers in space, and they have what's called the Woodrow Wilson class. And what do they call it Woodrow Wilson? Because he was the 9-point peace guy. Because Woodrow Wilson founded the League of Nations, which is the predecessor to the United Nations. This is like if you live in Britain and somebody Scottish wins, they're like, yay, Britain. In England, they're like, yay, Britain. But if the guy is from Manchester, yay, England. It's like, well, wait a minute, isn't he British too? And the United Nations is like that. It's like, these are compact ships. And it's like, going, okay, you named them for successive leaders of Earth. The guy that founded it, the two guys that founded the United Nations, and all the secretaries general. What was a lot of fun was in the last novel, there's a ship named for the current secretary general, and somebody makes a comment that is the oldest damn ship in the fleet. So, whereas Mars does basically the same thing, and Mars is described as one of the big five worlds. They have these really ugly octagonal cylinders that are huge, and they're bigger than the Woodrow Wilsons. They're called the Olympus Mons ships. They better be big if they're going to be called Olympus Mons, but they are named for like sections of Mars. There's Utopia Planitia, Valles Marineris, the Hellas. Haven't had the nerve to do the Pella yet because I don't really want to rip off the Expanse. I did put a Canterbury, I think, in. It was just kind of a random ship off in the background. And that was just kind of my nod to the Expanse. In the newer ones, the compact ships are these big, smooth wedges, and you don't see the projection drive dishes on them. They use one in the front, one in the front generates a wormhole. The one in the rear keeps it open. That's all hidden on these newer ships, and they're variously called the Prometheus class, Augustus Caesar class. It just depends on where the shipyard was that was built. And these came about because they were at war with the realm, and finally somebody back on Earth said, if we're going to defend you. You're going to pay for this. So in Checkmate, we see the Queen Maria Sophia. That is one of the first ones. And you would think, hey, Pottle, before you do a live event, go back and skim your book, because I can't remember what the name of the one. It was for Metis, which is now an independent nation that took Amargosa and a couple other colony worlds with it. They had one. It was named, I think, for a Greek god or goddess, one of the two. It's probably more of a goddess. They tend to be a little more feminist than the average human world. But Etrusca sends one out at the beginning of Checkmate called the Marcus Aurelius. And in the next one, you find out Bonaparte names theirs after former monarchs. So one of them was called the Chief Ironclad, and that the Queen Maria Sophia was named for the first monarch on Bonaparte. They have like a rotating monarchy. So like, Edward Windsor is king because the Yamato king died, and now the Windsors are up on deck, and then the Bourbons have to come off the bench, and then it just keeps going. There's like two from Europe because they're just really whores for royalty, and anybody in Europe watching that, I'm giving you shit. But anyway, so there are these big wedge-shaped ships, and there's various sizes and classes, but they're basically the same thing. And they're a lot more efficient. And by the end of the arc, it becomes kind of obvious that Earth doesn't have any of these. And in fact, they took a couple of the Woodrow Wilsons with them, which they're not happy about. So yeah, let's see. It looks like oops. Might be nice if I use the right mouse. I got two computers up here. Let's see. All right. See if we got anything on Facebook. Yeah, there's a really bad shot of me for the post for the live feed. Let's see. Yeah, I think there was one question there, and then if not, I'll just come back here. It's about 9:00, so we're probably gonna wrap up here pretty quick. Yeah, let's see that. Dave Huskins asked me if I did like he suggested and mounted energy weapons on the Harry Potter giant moving chess pieces like he suggested. You know what? I just, and Scott, you Beta Red Royal orders. You think maybe I should do that for the next story arc where, they basically replace the mechs with giant chess pieces that have like plasma cannons on their head? I think that would be awesome. So don't tell Peter F. Hamilton that I came up with that, because he'll steal that shit. Okay, I promised a giveaway, and basically I am going to get so called out in the Keystroke podcast next week, and I can't do a damn thing about it because I'm at work. So I usually watch that or listen to that while I'm at work. So anyway, our third prize is the entire Amargosa trilogy, No Marigolds, Amargosa trilogy, and books 1 and 2 of the Suicide Arc, which is Suicide Run and Checkmate. I can't remember the title of the book that we're doing a launch on. And I am randomly going to pick somebody, and I pick Schmoof. Schmoof. You have my email. At least you have my Facebook Messenger. So shoot me your email, and I will send all those books to you on Kindle. And yeah, so you get the email, or you get the ebook collection, the trifecta, closest thing to a box set I have out right now. Second prize was a signed copy of Checkmate, and I should be getting those in a couple of weeks. I just got the word from Sarah at CHBB, and I am gonna go with let's see. I think I'm gonna send that to Mr. David Huskins. Dave, I I think I still have your address, but send it to me and I will speed that one off to you. Schmoof says I lost audio back in a second. Hey, this is live internet, people. So okay. And first prize is signed copies of both Suicide Run, which hold on. Check it out. I still have one author copy left. So Mr. Scott McGlasson will get that along with one of my Checkmate copies that's coming in a couple of weeks. And so you have to be patient with me. Generally not been very good with these giveaways, so we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to make sure everybody gets what they asked for. Yeah, I'll send that out. And Scott, of course, gets first place for two reasons. One is that he has been an invaluable resource trying to put this stuff together. And two, he just hammered on the next book, Royal Orders. And there was stuff that he didn't suggest. It was like you read between the lines. It's like, oh, I need to do that to this paragraph. And just suddenly I was like going, yeah, you missed that. You missed that. You missed that. You know, it's like, when I missed that, it's like, I see this, here's a suggestion. I see this, here's a suggestion. And I'm like going, and 3 lines down from here, I probably should do the same thing. So Scott, you were extremely helpful on that one. Plus I got my ranks put together. Step a house. Dave's not here, man. Is that you, Mr. Huskins? Or is that somebody else? Yeah. Schmoof. We worked how long together at that insurance company? I mean, we practically built YouTube from there. Oh, Step a house. Rita's Cheech. This is Dave. I got the stuff. So anyway, all right, people. So I am going to write these down real quick and put it up on my monitor, so I don't be a bad author this time. And write that down. This is it. As you can see, I actually have a title for the channel now. It's the Minded TS Huddle, and that may change again soon. This may end up becoming a podcast, which means I'm going to have to learn to be a little more coherent. But I had fun. Obviously, you guys were having some fun. Hey, that was strong. I said that. Sorry. Yeah, man. Oh, man. Step a house. You're so high. So, yeah, let's do that. So, yeah, there's a possibility this may turn. I may launch a podcast here soon. It'll probably start out with just me blathering for about 15 minutes or so, just till I get used to the technology. Definitely going to use StreamYard on the next launch event because I think that would make things a lot easier. Yeah, if I can get Facebook to shut off its wish.com AI. Are you listening, Zuck? Yeah, you don't let me advertise for another 10 days, and it always seems to be when I got a book coming out. Bezos would have given me an Amazon Prime deal. Either a deal on shipping my books or actually, bought it and, filmed 3 of them over 5 years. So, anyway. Ming-Na Wen is suicide. Yeah. Bezos, as soon as you finish tearing that bridge down in Holland, get on that. So anyway, you guys have fun. Had a blast doing this tonight, and I will see you again soon. Hopefully we will do a podcast, and eventually, hopefully, I will have guests. Then I can shut up and let somebody else do it because like my throat's killing me. All right. Yep. So that's it, everybody. Peace.